Welcome back to the Team to Beat Miami Heat podcast, your one-stop shop for daily Miami Heat content. My name is Amir. We got Trent joining us today. How's it going, Trent?
Man, I'm doing great, man. I know it has been a very, very slow off season, and so me and Amir, obviously part of the roundtable, we are going to be bringing something for you guys weekly, and we're going to stay consistent. I promise you. Amir be on my ass. It's my fault. It's really my fault, but we're going to do it consistently, and we're just going to talk about like NBA news slash like football. What's going on in the Football Association, especially with football. Um, Pretty much back preseason already starting. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be discussed, and then obviously we can briefly talk about Miami and stuff like that. But we're kind of expanding a little bit. Want to just talk about different sports because, like I said, it's a very dead off season for Miami, and we're not really used to this. So yeah, that's today's episode. Mayor, tell them what we are going to be talking about.
Yeah, so on my channel, I want to talk about some NBA updates, and I'm going to try to associate general NBA updates with the Miami Heat, but also if there is no association or tie, just want to talk about, like Trent said, current events with the NBA. And it is super slow across the league with free agency, with trades. Right now, the main focus with basketball is Team USA. And like even that subject is pretty predictable at this point, right? I mean, who knows? Who knows? France could maybe give them some trouble or Serbia with Jokic, but they should win the gold. Obviously, we got Bam Adebayo representing for the Miami Heat, but we have Nikola Jovic representing for Serbia. So that could be something interesting. But right now, I want to talk about a guy that was linked to the Miami Heat, which we knew we would never get because the Miami Heat have one tradable draft pick, which is like our 2030 first round pick. And that player is Lauri Markkanen. He's been on the trade block this offseason, and it looked like the Jazz were possibly interested in trading him, and then they said they weren't, and then they said they were, and then now it looks like he has verbally agreed to a contract with the Jazz. He's going to sign a potential $200 million 4 to 5 year extension. And I know Miami Heat fans will be disappointed because we thought he could be a really good fit next to Bam Adebayo, essentially being an upgrade to Nikola Jovic. And so, Trent, what are your thoughts on the whole Markkanen signing? Like, do you think it's a mistake from the Jazz, like putting that much money into this dude? Like, he's not a 1A. He might not even be a number 2 on it, like a team. So, like, why would they do that? Like, does he make sense to be their cornerstone? I know they can't really attract anybody. So, what are your
Well,
thoughts?
so my thoughts about it is you're dealing with a top GM in this league, believe it or not. Danny Ainge is a top GM, personally, in my opinion, right? So he knows what he's doing. And you want to lock up your best player in your team. Remember, he had an expiring deal coming up. So they said, you know what? The Warriors are not really giving up what we want. They were willing to trade him, if you know. They were willing to trade him, but the Warriors weren't giving branding up, Brandon P. They said, I want him in Kaminga for marketing. And they said, no, Warriors. So they said, okay, no one's going to really, we don't want nobody. Now let's lock him up. Now, that doesn't mean they can't trade him from 2 years from now. They can't trade him next season because of the new barring agreement I read. But 2025, 2026, they can still trade him. And for marketing, it's like, okay, I'm gonna get paid, especially with the new CBA. The new
Yep.
CBA doesn't allow a lot of people to get paid. So you got to get paid by your team, and the Jazz had money. They don't really have much big contracts outside of Lauri Markkanen. John Collins, his deal is expiring soon. Collins, Sexton, a trade piece. Clarkson, the trade piece. So they don't really have much to worry about. So Danny Ainge is building something special over there. He must know something that we don't know. He must see Markkanen as that guy that can lead them possibly to a championship, right? That's a goal for every franchise. Let's win a championship. So maybe we don't think about that, but they probably view him as that. And, you keep Markkanen for the year. Let's see what this team can go. Then next season, the 2025, 2026, you kind of, judge your team. Okay, are we getting in the lottery for Cooper Flag, which I doubt, but what picks are we getting? And then possibly you trade market and you flip him for 4 to 5 first round picks. Because if Rudy Gobert is getting that, if Mikal Bridges is getting that, Laurie Markkanen will easily get that. So I just think it's more the fact that we're keeping him for this season. Let's see what happens next year. So yeah.
Yeah, the CBA makes it more difficult to
Yeah.
add multiple max deals. So if any team has two max guys, that's it. You know, and if you're making 40 to 50 and you have two guys, you're toast. You're in the first apron basically based on just the general contracts across the NBA. You're going to have a few guys making a few million here and there, but like the average salary is now increased. Like it's like $14 million if you think about it, which is crazy. So the other guy that's linked to the Jazz that was also linked to the Miami Heat, Brandon Ingram. So he's in his final year. He has an expiring contract, which is like I don't have the number in front of me. 26 to 30 million or something. I think it's expiring. He wants a 4-year, $200 million extension, similar to what Donovan Mitchell got, which I think is insane. So he is another guy that the Miami Heat were linked to, but I think it's a good idea not to approach him because one of his injury history and he wants this contract. So it would be a 1-year rental in theory, unless you trade all those pieces, then you have to extend them. Otherwise, why would you give up a ton to acquire him? He's 26. He's still young. He fits the Bam timeline, but he is also now linked to the Jazz. So, like, what do you think about pairing Lauri with Ingram? Because if you, to your point, it's hard to get that contract. The Jazz have cap space, so they're going to give one max to Lauri. What do you think about them giving the max to him, 45 to 50 million a year? I think that's insane.
I,
What are your thoughts?
I don't think it makes sense. I don't think it makes his team competitive at all. Having Brandon Ingram and Lauri Markkanen as your two best guys, it doesn't really make your team that well. Brandon Ingram, the reason why he has no trade market is because, one, you just said he wants to get paid that much money, but you only get that type of money when you perform in the postseason. And last time I checked, they got swept. I believe they got swept or won one game in the first round. And people are going to be like, well, they didn't have Zion. Well, Brandon Ingram is supposed to be that guy. He's way older than Zion. He has the playoff experience, and he was pretty awful. Like, Lou Dort clamped him up that whole series where he was like 4 for 18 in some games, and his plus minus was terrible. Like, he just played bad. So, like, the Pelicans are like, I'm not maxing you. It doesn't make sense for me. And then also, the Brandon Ingram and Zion fit doesn't really fit, to be honest. They're not known as shooters. They're known as pretty much attacking the rim and stuff like that. And Brandon Ingram's more of a mid-range player. So the fit's not there. You need spacing the floor, and that's the problem we have for a while when it comes to Bam, right? Bam doesn't have, at the time at least, before, he wasn't spacing out the floor, and that's why we wanted a floor spacer. Now he's doing it, and now it's like, okay, let's actually have a big out there, if that makes sense and stuff like that. Because now Bam can space the floor. We get a big crashing for rebounds, and it's not just Bam, Bam, Bam doing that. So the spacing doesn't really work for the Pelicans. It doesn't make sense for the Jazz. I think for the Pelicans this season, you just run it. You just let it run out, right? You got Zion, you got Brandon Ingram, you got CJ, and just go out there and see what they can do. I just think you let his contract play out. I don't think
Yep.
you trade him. I don't think you pay him. It doesn't make sense. So you kind of just go from that. But they did a move this offseason that I'm missing out on. Am I tripping?
The Jazz?
No, the Pelicans. I
Yeah,
feel like
they added DeJounte Murray.
that's what it was. Okay, yeah. So you have DeJounte Murray, right? Which is another player that's not capable. He could shoot the ball, but it's not like a 3-point specialist, right? So now you have DeJounte Murray, Brandon Ingram, and Zion with a rookie center. The spacing right there is kind of crazy, but try it out. Let's see what they can do. And then also you have Trey Murphy and you got Herb Jones. So I like their roster. They just got to stay healthy, and let's see what they can do.
You don't think they should try to trade him though? If they like, I don't know. I understand your point. Like, don't extend him. Just let him play his final year. Then he becomes a free agent. I don't know. I'm assuming he becomes an unrestricted free agent, so he can go anywhere he chooses. So that's fine. But like, why would you let him walk versus just like trading him to a team that might not extend him? Because it seems like there's no interest from any team yet. It's still early in the offseason, but there's no team saying that we're willing to give you some sort of extension. And for him, it's still going to be big, right? It might not be 45, 50, but he's making like, if he's making 30, I'm sure he still wants like, 35, then 37, then eventually up to 40. He's going to have to compromise. So do you think like it makes sense for the Pelicans to try to trade him to some team that's willing to do that? Or even just one team that's willing to give up a tiny bit for the 1-year rental? Like they're not going to give up a shit ton for him. Like, what are your thoughts on that before we hop off?
But you got to realize, Amir, with the new CBA, a lot of teams don't even want to deal with that. They can't afford that. The teams that had money was the 76ers, the Orlando Magic, and the Pistons. Outside of that, no one can really afford Brandon Ingram. No one can really afford Zach LaVine. So that's the tough part right now. And I think it kind of affects free agency. It kind of affects the trade market with the new CBA because people are not going to take these big contracts. So with Brandon Ingram's like, you know what? I want to get paid now, so then you can trade me. But it's not going to happen because the Pelicans are not going to pay him. It's simple as that. And if they do pay him, they're dumb, right? Because then Murray probably wants an extension. Zion's going to want an extension. CJ, I don't know what you do with CJ and stuff like that, but we'll see. But on paper, if you think about it, they have a really good starting five. If you go out there with Zion, Brandon Ingram, DeJounte Murray, and CJ McCollum, those are 4 capable of scorers that can give you 25 a night.
Who's their 5? I forgot.
They drafted a rookie. So like they're okay. And then they got Herb Jones.
What's his name? Zachy? No, Zachy's he's on Memphis.
Exactly.
My bad.
So they got Herb Jones and Trey Murphy. That's a 7-man rotation with Jose Alvarado coming off the bench. That's an 8-man rotation. That team is fine. But on paper, on the court, we got to see them figure it out.
Yep. That team looks good on paper, but too bad they're in the West, and they're not going to do shit in the West, even on paper with that squad, because the West is deep, the East is deep. So I think next week, Trent, on my channel, we'll do an East episode. Let's talk about like the top 4 teams in the East, and we'll talk about the bottom 4, which unfortunately I think the Miami Heat are going to fall into that bottom 4 range. And then we could do on your channel, we could do the West. Let's look at the top 4, talk about who is the best contenders in each conference, and then we could talk about the other 4 essentially and see what they can do to like eventually compete. So,
and then we could talk about how beautiful my beard looks like. All right. And not Amir's beard, because Amir looks old and I look young and pretty. Just saying.
I got salt and pepper. I got the wisdom. This guy's got that youthful look over there, right? That's the
thing. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for watching. Don't forget to go to Trent's channel, Miami Heat Network, and subscribe. And then, of course, subscribe to my channel. And the next episode is going to be on Trent's channel, so look out for it. Thanks for hopping on, Trent.